Yeah. Good morning to all of you. So, whether this slide is visible, am I audible? Please respond.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Um, Let us discuss from the point where we have left yesterday. Yesterday we have discussed that there are three important types of testing techniques. One is black box testing, another is white box testing, another is gray box or model based testing. So a couple of classes now will take on black box testing. So today let's start one black box testing. Gradually we will take up other black box testing techniques. So today we'll start with this black box testing techniques. I have already told you what is the objective of black box testing yesterday. In black box testing, the test cases are designed using what? Using the functional specification of the software. And where you will get the functional specification? From the SRS document. And in this black box testing, we do not require any knowledge about the internal structure of the software. Isn't it? That is called black box testing. But where we require the internal structure of the we require the knowledge of the internal structure of the software or the code, then we call it as what? White box testing. And where we design the test cases in between SRS document and coding. So what is there in between SRS document and coding? Design documents such as DFD and UML diagrams, etc. So when we can design test cases from these intermediate documents, such as these intermediate design documents such as data flow diagrams or UML diagrams, etc., we call that technique as model based testing technique or gray box testing technique. This is what we have discussed in yesterday. Okay. So in black box testing, the test cases are designed using only the functional specification of the software without having any knowledge of the internal structure of the software. Since in black box testing, we design the test cases using only the functional specification of the software. For this reason, black box testing is also known as functional testing. This we have already discussed in the last class. Now let's see. Black box testing aims at detecting what kind of errors or what kind of errors can be detected by black box testing. Black box testing technique attempts to find errors in the following categories. Please remember, here we do not have any knowledge on the code, only from the functional requirements as mentioned in the SRS document, we are trying to generate the test cases. So what kind of what errors it can detect, in which way it will help in testing the software. It can be used to test the modules independently. So for each functional requirement, suppose you have written a module, so you can test the modules independently. Number two purpose is to test the functional validity of the software so that any incorrect or missing functions can be recognized. We can easily test the functional validity of the software. So if any what functionality is missing or any functionality is incorrectly written, is giving incorrectly output, that can be recognized. Similarly, to look for the interface errors. Okay, another is to look for the interface errors. That means two modules you are integrating and they communicate through some parameters. So if during this interfacing some errors occurs, then black box testing can be used to detect those errors, to look for the interface errors. Then what are the other errors? They can be detected by black box testing. To test the system behavior and check its performance, we can easily test the behavior of the system. We can easily check the performance of the system by using black box testing. Similarly, we can test the maximum load or stress on the system. Your software can bear what maximum load, it can bear what maximum stress. There you do not require the code. Directly from the functional requirements we can design the test cases. So by using black box testing we can or black box testing can be used to test the maximum load or maximum stress on the system. Black box testing also can be used to test the software so that the user or the customer accept the system within the definite acceptable limits. So every system, it does not have what it cannot bear indefinite load or indefinite stress. Each system has some limitations. So what is the acceptable limit? That also you can verify, that also you can test using black box testing techniques. So black box testing technique can also be used to test the software such that the user or the customer, he accepts the delivered system with some defined acceptable limits. There are many black box testings. Yesterday I have told these things like equivalence class partitioning, boundary value analysis, state table based testing, decision table based testing, cause effect graph testing, orthogonal array testing, positive negative testing, and so many. We do not have sufficient time to discuss all, but at least these black box testing I'll try to cover in the couple of classes. So we'll start today with the first technique, that is equivalence class partitioning. We'll start from this technique. So as its name suggests, black box testing, how does it work? As I have already told you, we do not require any knowledge about the internal structure of the code. So the internal structure of the code can be viewed as a black box. This is the software system which is viewed as a black box. We are just supplying the input test data and observing the output results. I am repeating, test case means, or test data means what? Test case means ISO, input and state and the expected output. So state, when it is almost constant, does not change, you can drop that one. Remain the input and output. So test case means supply the input test data, observe what expected outputs you are getting, I and O. Roughly speaking, test case means the input that you are supplying and the output that is expected. So, isn't it? So test case means input, you have to give the input data what you are giving, input test data, and what results you are expecting, output results. So in this way you can perform this black box testing, and hence its name is black box testing. So this class today will discuss only one technique, that is equivalence class partitioning. Let's see how does this technique works. So according to equivalence class partitioning, the input values, the input data to be supplied to a program, they are partitioned into what? They are partitioned into equivalence classes. Okay. Then how will you partition? The partitioning is done in such a way that the software or the program behaves in similar ways to every input data, to every input value belonging to an equivalence class. Okay. We have to do the partitioning in such a way that it is done in such a way that the program or the software, it behaves in similar ways to each and every input value belonging to a particular equivalence class. Okay. So here I want to give a small example of the equivalence class. You might have known about this congruence modulo operator, congruence modulo operator. A congruence modulo B mod N. Suppose if this is the case, and now you want to find out the equivalence classes, you take the set of natural numbers. Okay. And that mod N you can take suppose 3. So then what classes you will get? You know, modulo congruence modulo M, that means the remainder you have to take. And here I have taken 3. So what will the classes? If we will start from 0, first number will be 0. Then what will the next number? Modulo I have taken 3. So next one will be what I will say. So 0. So that means in the first equivalence class, all the values whose remainder will be 0, they will come in the first equivalence class. Second equivalence class will be the numbers for which when it is divided by 3, the remainder is 1. Third equivalence class is the number or the set of numbers. When they are divided by 3, the remainder is 2. So if I am taking that congruence modulo N and the N value I am taking 3, how many equivalence classes I will get? 3. Equivalence class 1, 2 and 3. In equivalence class 1, what numbers will be present? 0, 3, 6, 9, 12, etc. etc. Because in all the cases remainder is 0. Similarly, in second equivalence class, what I will get? All the numbers having when they are divided by 3, the remainder is 1. So what numbers we will get in equivalence class 2? Natural number 1, then 4, then 7, then 10, like that. Because when these numbers are divided by 3, you will get remainder is 1. And what is the last equivalence class? Equivalence class 3. That means the set of numbers, when they are divided by 3, you will get the remainder as 2. So what will the set of numbers included in this last equivalence class? 2, 5, 8, 11, 14 and so on. So now please see, the whole set of natural numbers is divided into 3 equivalence classes. And why I am dividing into equivalence classes? Because if you have written a program and you are doing something input values, it is expected that how the program will behave for input value 0, in same way it will behave for 3, same way for 6, same way for 9, etc. This is one class. In the other way, when you will take the input program, you will give the input value either 1 or 4 or 7 or 10, the program will behave similarly. And in the last case, if you have taken a program, maybe for prime number or whatever that, the square root of number, whatever that, it is expected that how the program will behave for input value 2, in the same way it will behave for 5, 8, 11, etc. So now the question is, if, because I have already told you, we do not have sufficient time, we cannot write indefinite number of infinite number of test cases. We should generate optimized number of test cases. So if the program is behaving in the similar way for 3, in the same way it is behaving for 3, in the same way it is behaving for 6, why shall I take all those 0, 3, 6, 9, 12, etc.? I take any one of them. That is one input, I will take the first equivalence class. Similarly, the program is behaving in the similar way for 1, 4, 7, 10, etc. So why shall I take all the possible cases? Only one I can take out of that. 1, 4, 7, 10 like this, only one I can take. And similarly, from the last equivalence class, instead of taking all the possible values 2, 5, 8, 11, 14, etc., I can take only one input value from that and I can test my software, because the rule says that in equivalence class, how a program is behaving for one element of the equivalence class, it will behave in the same way. Just 1 second, please. Okay, so that is the objective. The objective is that, or the motivation behind equivalence class partitioning is that, if a program is behaving in some way for a particular element of an equivalence class, it will also behave similarly for all other elements of that equivalence class. So now, instead of taking so many input data, in this particular case, that congruence modulo n, where I have taken n is equal to 3, just 3 input values will be sufficient. One from 0, 3, 6, 9, any one, suppose 3. Then one from the second equivalence class, that is 1, 4, 7, 10, maybe let's take 7. And one from the last equivalence class, that is 2, 5, 8, 11, 12, 14, etc. Let's take 5. In this way, instead of taking infinite number of or a large number of input data, just by taking 3 numbers, we can test our program. This is the idea behind equivalence class partitioning. Similarly, if you are considering congruence modulo 4, how many equivalence classes you will get? 4. And what are them in equivalence class 1? What elements you will get? 0, 4, 8, 12, 16, etc. In the second equivalence class 2, what you will get? 1, 5, 9, 13, 17, etc. In the third equivalence class, what elements you will get? Equivalence class 3, you will get 2, then 6, then 10, etc. And in equivalence class 4, what you will get the elements? 3, 7, 11, and like that. So in this way, you can generate equivalence classes and just take only one sample value from each equivalence class, and that will become your test case. You need not to design so many test cases for that problem. Only you have to take one element from each equivalence class. That will be your test suite. Okay. So in equivalence class partitioning, the input values to a program are partitioned into equivalence classes. The partitioning is done in such a way that the program behaves in similar ways to every input value belonging to an equivalence class. So why to define the equivalence classes? What is the motivation? I have already explained. We have to test the code with just one representative value, with just one sample value from each equivalence class. So testing the code with just one sample value from each equivalence class is as good as testing using any number of any other values from the equivalence class. Then why shall I test for all the values? I should just take only one value, because how the program will behave for that value of equivalence class, similarly it will behave for the other elements of the equivalence class. So there is no need to take so many values from an equivalence class. Just you have to take one sample value from each equivalence class, then you test your program, then you can get the behavior of the program. How do you determine the equivalence classes? Let's see some guidelines. How do you determine the different equivalence classes? First step is examine the input data. Okay, first study the input data, examine the input data. Few general guidelines for determining the equivalence classes can be given. I have put in the next slide how to determine the equivalence classes. So two important what guidelines I am giving here. One is, if the input data to the program is specified by a range of values, okay, your program can handle values maybe from 1 to 5,000. This is a range. So if the input data to the program is specified by a range of values, for example, numbers between 1 to 5,000, then how you determine the equivalence classes? You can determine that there are two equivalence classes. Sorry, there are three equivalence classes. One is a valid class, one is a valid equivalence class, another two are invalid equivalence classes. What is the valid equivalence class? Any number between 1 to 5,000 is a valid equivalence class. And other two, that means all the numbers less than 1, they are invalid. All the numbers greater than 5,000, they are also invalid, because our program, it is specified that it will work for the values within 1 to 5,000. So you can see that here I am getting three equivalence classes. One valid class, that means any number between 1 to 5,000, and two equivalence classes. One is this, now all the numbers less than 1, one all the numbers greater than 5,000. So in this case we are getting three equivalence classes. So if the input data to the program is specified by a range of values, then you can consider one valid equivalence class from that range, within the range, and two invalid equivalence classes. One is those are all outside the range. So in this way we can find out the equivalence classes if the input data is specified by a range of values. If the input data is now the second guideline, where the input data is not represented as a range of values. However, if the input data is an enumerated set of values, I hope enumeration you must have read in C, like days of a week, dates in a month, months in a year. These are all examples of enumerated data type we have already seen in C. So if the input data is not a range of numbers, but it is an enumerated set of values. For example, out of ABC, say 1 will occur. Then how will find out the equivalence classes? Here we will get maybe two equivalence classes. One equivalence class for the valid input values. Anything else only between only from ABC. So one equivalence class for valid input values, and another equivalence class for invalid input values should be defined. Anything else besides ABC, somebody has given D, somebody has given X, these are all invalid equivalence classes. So one equivalence class for valid input values, that means only from ABC, and another equivalence class from the set of alphabets excluding ABC. They represent the invalid input values. These invalid input values should be defined. Okay. So when the input is an enumerated set of values, we can decide two equivalence classes, one for the valid input values, another for the another equivalence class for invalid input values should be defined. Okay, so two important guidelines here they are given here. Now, by using these two what guidelines, let me take some examples which will clarify your doubt. So here example is very much important. You will get questions like this. So now let us solve some examples for this equivalence class partitioning. How to design test cases using equivalence class partitioning. So I am again repeating here, test case means it's a triplet ISO where I is input, S is state with expected output. In these types of problems, what I have taken, S is not important. That means state is remaining same. So I can drop that one. Only two things I have to consider, input and output. And you know, expected output already you know that is fixed. So that you can also, some of cases you can drop. Only the important thing that you have to consider, what is the input. So roughly speaking here, test cases means what is the input that you have to supply. That is what the test case that you have to design here. So let us take example 1. We'll solve it by using equivalence class partitioning. Suppose there is a program. A program reads an input value in the range of 1 and 5000. Okay. A program reads an input value in the range of what? In the range of 1 and 5000. And this program computes the square root of the input number. It computes what? It computes the square root of the input number. So I will be supplied as the input number. You have written a function. It will compute the square root, and so that you will get the square root of that number. You will be obtained as the output. So there are three equivalence classes. You can see one is the set of negative integers, the set of integers in the range of 1 and 5000, and integers larger than 5000. Isn't it very simple? I have told here. For this problem, the input value is specified as a what range. Just 1 second, please. Hello. Class okay, so a program, it reads an input value in the range of 1 and 5000. So our first guideline we can apply here because the input value is specified as a range. And according to the first guideline, how many equivalence classes you will get? 3. 1 valid and 2 invalid. Valid will be containing the numbers in between, any number between 1 to 5000. One invalid class will be containing numbers less than 1. Another equivalence class will be containing numbers greater than 5001. So now there are 3 equivalence classes. I can take any sample value from each class. So 3 equivalence classes, I will take 3 sample values from the 3 classes. That will be my test case. So you can see there are 3 equivalence classes. All the set of or the numbers less than 1, that means the set of all negative numbers. Then the set of integers in the range of 1 and 5000, and any number set of integers larger than 5000. So 3 equivalence classes I have got. Now I will take 1 sample value from each equivalence class. That will be my test case. So the test suite must include what? It must include the representatives from each of the 3 equivalence classes. From the 3 equivalence classes I have shown here, I have to take 1 value from the first equivalence class, 1 value from the second equivalence class, 1 value from the third equivalence class. So the test suite must include representatives from each of the 3 equivalence classes, and a sample test suite I have shown here. So first one is what? All negative numbers. I have chosen -5. Second one, in between 1 to 5000, I have chosen 500. Third one, any number greater than 5000. So what I have written here, 6000. So this is a sample test suite for the given problem, which calculates the square root of number, and the number should be in between 1 to 5000. So we have, this is the test case, 1 from this any value less than 1, another value any value greater than 5000, another any value in between 1 to 5000. That I have taken 500 here. So in this way we can design a possible test suite for this given problem. Okay. This here we have used equivalence class partitioning, and we have found that there are 3 equivalence classes are here, and accordingly we have designed the test cases. let us quickly take another example. That is example 2. What does it do? A program reads 3 numbers ABC. See, you see, in my previous example, I do not require about the code. I do not require about the internal structure of the software of the code. Directly from the problem description, program description, or the requirement specification, I am able to design the test cases. Similarly, another example I have taken, where I do not require the internal structure of the code. From the problem description, I can generate the test cases using this equivalence class partitioning, which is a kind of black box testing. A program reads 3 numbers. What are the numbers? A, B, and C. With a range 1 to 50. That means A, B, C, they can take values, any value from 1 to 50. And what this program does, it prints the largest number. Out of A, B, C, which one is the largest number? What is the question? Question is design the test cases for this program using equivalence class partitioning. So now we can see, have an inputs, 3 inputs. Each input value can be taken or can be given value in between 1 to 50. So it is the first guideline we can apply because the range is given within 1 to 50. So that means 3 equivalence classes will get 1, all numbers less than 1. Equivalence class 2, any number in between 1 to 50. Equivalence class 3, the numbers larger than 50. And then we have to take a sample value from every case. So first we partition the domain of input as valid input values and invalid values, getting the following classes. Okay, first we partition the domain of input values. How? As I have already told you, 1 valid class and 2 invalid classes, like that. So let's see. I have little bit solved into more detail. So you can see, in first equivalence class, I have only chosen value of A, and value of A should be lying in between 1 to 50. In the second equivalence class I2, I have chosen the value of B, and B should be in between 1 to 50. Third equivalence class, I have chosen C, that lie in between 1 to 50. So these all 3 are what? For the valid classes. Why I have taken 3? Because I am having 3 input values. In my previous example, only 1 input value. Here there are 3 input values, so 3 equivalence classes. Then what I will do, I will again go for A. That means I will choose the value A, I will choose in such a way that it should be less than 1. So fourth equivalence class, I have chosen A less than 1, 51, A greater than 50. Similarly, sixth equivalence class for B, again less than 1, seventh one B greater than 50, eighth one C is less than 1, and the ninth equivalence class C is greater than 50. So in this way, for this small problem, I have identified 9 equivalence classes because there are 3 input values A, B, C. Okay, and for every input value, 1 valid class and 2 invalid classes I have taken. So now what will be possible test cases? Let's see. Now the test cases can be designed from the above derived classes. How? By taking one test case from each class so that the test case covers maximum valid input classes and then separate test cases for each invalid class. So we have to take separate test cases for each invalid class. From each valid class, we will take at least one test case, one valid input classes, one test case from each valid input classes, and then separate test cases, at least one test case for each invalid class or from each invalid class. So now let us say this is a sample. It will be better if you can write down the test cases in the tabular format. Every test case you should give some ID. So first column you can keep a test case ID. Then what are the input values like A, B, C? Those are, because I have already told you what do you mean by test case. ISO, I is the input, O is the expected output, S is the state. Here state does not take any role, so state I have dropped. First 3 columns represent input values, so ABC input values. Next column is the output, that is O expected result or expected output. Then for better performance, you can show the classes, which class it is covered. How many equivalence classes are there? 9 equivalence classes. For easy representation, you can show which equivalence classes are covered by this test case ID. So let's take first test case ID 1. What I can say, I can take, as I have already told you, I should take first words one valid input, one input from the valid equivalence class. So how many input, what are the valid numbers? Any number in between 1 to 50 for ABC. So for ABC, for A, suppose I have, for A, suppose I have taken 13, which is valid. For B, I have taken 25, again valid. For C is 36. These are any values you can choose. And what should be the expected output? Of course, C, because it has maximum value 36. So then at what classes it is covered? All are valid. Valid classes are in which, valid numbers are in which class? Equivalence class I1, equivalence class I2 and equivalence class I3. So what classes they contain? They cover I1, I2, I3. So one valid case I have considered. Then what I will do? I will go for invalid inputs. So from every invalid input you take one. Okay. So then test case 2. And you know every input can take two invalid cases. One is less than 1, another is greater than 50. First I have taken for A, taken 0, and the expected result should be what? It should show error message, invalid input. And it covers which class? See, where 0 we have taken less than 1, 4. Equivalence class 4, I4 contains numbers, any number for which the value of A is less than 1. So that's why I have taken I3. Next, I have to taken the value greater than 50 for A. So suppose I have taken 51. B or C are valid, whatever they may be. But there would be an expected output should be an error message. Sorry, invalid input. And what class it cover? I5. Didn't you just see? Where A value is greater than 50? In equivalence class 5, I5. So this is the equivalence class I5. Similarly, you do for B and C, take invalid classes. In this test case ID 4, I have taken 0 for B. In test case ID 5, I have taken for B 53. Both are invalid inputs. So expected result will be invalid input. And classes covered will be I6, I7. And then test case ID 6, I have taken C is equal to 0, which is again invalid. And the next test case ID 7, I have taken for C51. Both are, in both the cases, the output should be error message invalid input. And what classes do they cover? Test case ID 6 covers equivalence class 8, and test case ID 7 covers invalid equivalence class I9. So in this way, you can design test cases using equivalence class partitioning. Any doubt, please? This is very much important. So unless you understand, you cannot design the test cases. Very simple, I am saying. There are, what we can say that, you can see that only simple principle, design 3 equivalence classes, 1 for valid, 2 for invalid, and proceed. Okay. So now, yes, please.
Sir, here we have not considered about having two inputs, let's say A and B in the having invalid inputs. A and B both have invalid inputs. So possible.
See here, this is as good as taking one input, invalid input, or 2 or 3. Whenever one input value is invalid, means the output should be invalid input. So how does it matter whether they say A I have taken 0? Even if B and C are valid or invalid, how does it matter? The result will be invalid input, because one is what? At least one input is wrong value. You can give B and C what invalid, but that is the advantage of equivalence class partitioning. Just take a sample value from every class, and A, B, C, for each one, had it been the case, their ranges are different, then you have to take the specific values. But I have in my problem, you see what I have told. Every input value having a range 1 to 50. And as long as one input value is wrong, obviously output will be error message. So how does it matter whether B and C are valid or invalid? That doesn't matter. And these are sample values only I have taken. You can put in this case says in case of 13 you can take -5, and in case of C you can take 51, no problem. So I am now considering only for what the variable A, and as long as one variable is false or it is what invalid, automatically the whole output will be invalid. Okay, so that doesn't matter. Yes, any other doubt? So in this way we can design the test cases, and please practice these kinds of test cases. Now there is another approach also to the same problem. Let's see what another approach I have to choose. I have told you. What is the objective of this program? To find out the largest number. So another method you can follow like this. I have chosen there are few equivalence classes based on what? So we can derive another set of equivalence classes based on some possibilities for the three integers ABC, based on some possibilities. These equivalence classes are given below. Like equivalence class 1, this in this case A is greater than B and A is greater than C. What does it mean? A is the largest value. Second case, B is greater than A and B is greater than C. That means B is the largest value. Third equivalence class, choose the values of A, B, C in such a way that C is greater than A and C is greater than B. That means C is the largest number. Another case may be I4, A is equal to B and A is not equal to C. Third one, or sorry, fifth one, B is equal to C and A is not equal to B. Sixth one, A is equal to C and C is not equal to B. And another case, A is equal to B is equal to C. All are same. So this is another classification where also you can design test cases so that you can find out the largest number. And here I have got say 7 number of equivalence classes. And if you take this classification, I will write down the test cases. Again, test case ID, the inputs, here it is ABC, then the expected result, then what classes are covered by the test case. So as I have taken the first one, suppose first one, so here I have taken A as 25, B, C I have taken same. So first of all it is I have taken what? I1. In I1 what does say? I1 says A is greater than B and A is greater than C. Is it okay here? Yes. A is greater than 25 is greater than B. 13 and 25 also greater than C value 13. Also I have chosen which one? Another simultaneously I have chosen that what? A is equal to, what is this other one? It is I5. I5 is B is equal to C. Isn't it? We have taken in such a way the value that B is equal to C. So this test case ID covers which classes? I1 and I3. And what should be the expected output in this case? A is the greatest one. Similarly, another test case I have chosen in which A and C I have chosen same and B is greater than both A and C. So expected output should be B is greatest, and what classes is covering? I2 and I6. Another test case I have covered, like where A and B are same, but C is greatest. It is covering I3, I4. And in another case I have taken all ABC are same. So this is covering, so the output should be all three are equal and it covers I7. If you want, further you can extend. Specifically, you take only cover I1. That is, take the values of ABC in such a way A is greater than B as well as A is greater than C. So, but they are not same. So say 25, then say 12, then C is equal to 15. So just only it will contain I1 only. A is greater than B, A is greater than C. You can extend this thing. I am not saying this 4 is there. It covers. We are finding clear-cut output, but if you want, you can further extend, only covering say I1, only I2, only I3, similarly only I5, only I6, only I4. In this way, you can design. So these are the ways by which you can find out the equivalence classes and design the test cases. We'll quickly take another test case, another example. Suppose a program is there which determines the next date in the calendar. Okay. It finds the next date. What are its inputs? Its input is entered in the form of with the following range. Like you have entered in maybe DDMMYY or MMDDYY, whatever form. And you know month will take the values in between 1 to 12. They can take the values in between 1 to 31. Year can take the values maybe 1900 to 20,025, like that, suppose. Then how can design the test cases? And what should be the output? If we enter today, like 19/12/2020, the output should be next day. That means 20/12/2020. So its output would be the next day, or if you are giving wrong values, it will show an error message, invalid date. So its output would be the next date or an error message, that is an invalid date. What is the question? Design test cases using equivalence class partitioning method. So from the first, what we have to do first step? First, we have to partition the domain of the input in terms of valid input values and invalid input values, so that we'll be getting the following classes. So I have taken in the form of MMDDYY. So first equivalence class, I can take M in between 1 to 12. Second equivalence class for day. See, first I am considering the valid cases, valid equivalence classes. So anything else for month, if month lies between 1 to 12, that is a valid equivalence class. Similarly, if the days lies in between 1 to 31, again valid equivalence class. Similarly, for the year, if it contains the values in between 1900 to 2025, this is a valid equivalence class. So first three are all valid equivalence classes. It is just like my second example just I have shown. Similarly, this now for M I have to take the equivalent invalid classes. For D I have to take the invalid classes. For Y the invalid classes. For M you can see there could be two invalid classes. One case month value is less than 1, another case month value is greater than 12. Similarly for D there will be two invalid equivalence classes, D value less than 1 and D value greater than 31. And for year, since in the question it is given that you have to prepare the calendar in between 1900 to 20,025. So any value, any year value less than 1900 or greater than 2025 are also invalid classes. That I have shown here. Isn't it? Here M is less than 1, I4, for in I5 M is greater than 12, in I6 day is less than 1, in equivalence class I7 day is greater than 31. In I8, Y year is less than 1900. In I9, year is greater than 2025. Very simple. Now you take sample values from each class. Design test cases in such a way that each class should be covered at least once. So the test cases can be designed from the above derived classes, taking one test case from each class, so that the test case covers maximum valid input classes, and then we have to take separate test cases for each invalid class. Now the test cases are shown here. Exactly the previous example. First column is test case ID. Next three columns represent the input. Next column is the expected result or expected output, and last column is the classes covered by the test case. So first I have to take a valid one. So for month, suppose I have taken 5, day I have taken 20, year I have taken 1996. So what should the expected result? Next date. So current date is 20. What will the next date? Next date should be 21/5/1996. That means May 21st, 1996. This is a valid case. So what classes it is covering? I1, I2, I3, because all are valid classes. Then for every invalid class, I have to take an input. For month, I have taken 0. Whatever may be DD and YY, it should show an error message, invalid input. And what class it is containing? Where month is less than 0, less than 1, you can see. In I4, month is less than 1. So the second test case, it covers class I2, equivalence class I2. Similarly, in test case I3, month I have taken greater than 12. Whatever may be DD and YY, again it is invalid input. The class covered is I5. Similarly, you can do for you can take invalid values for date as well as invalid for Y. The message should be an error message. It should show as invalid input. This is the expected result or expected output, and the classes covered by the test case are mentioned here. So in this is another example by using this this is another example for which we have applied equivalence class partitioning to test this software. Here also we do not require code. Directly from the problem description, from the requirement specification, we are generating the test cases. Okay. Let's quickly take the another example. Last example maybe example 4. Suppose you have to write a program, or you have written a program which takes an angle as input within the range 0 to 360, and then it determines in which quadrant the angle lies. So we have to design test cases using equivalence class partitioning method. So first, what is the first step? Partition the domain of input as valid and invalid classes as shown as follows. So class 1 angle is a valid angle, that means lies in between 0 to 360, first equivalent class. Then second one, very simple, angle is less than 0 or angle is sorry, this is the last one, should be 336. This should be 336, isn't it? The angle should be 336. The typing mistake. Okay, so first one is the valid class, second one is invalid, that is angle is less than 0. Third one is an equivalence class, again invalid equivalence class, for which angle contains value more than 360. A very simple table. First column is test case ID, second is the input, here the input is angle, third column is the expected result or expected output, fourth one is the which class it is covered. So for first test case, I have taken any valid angle, that is a 50, which lies in between 0 to 360. Obviously, you know there are 4 quadrants: 0 to 90, 9 to 180, 180 to 270, and 270 to 360. So first one is, of course, the expected result should show that this given input 50 lies in first quadrant. Part class is covered I1. Then for the other two, I have taken invalid values. In one case less than 0, another case greater than 360. Both are invalid inputs, and the covered classes are I2 and I3 respectively. This is one way of generating test cases for the given angle problem. The same problem I can solve it from another angle, from another way. Okay, this can be solved using another aspect. These classes can also be prepared based on the output criteria as shown below. That means the angle, first class angle, we have to choose in such a way that it will lie in first quadrant. What is the condition? The angle, if the value lies between 0 to 90, then it will lie in the first quadrant. If the input value is in between 91 to 180, it will lie in the second quadrant. If the input value is in between 181 to 270, it will lie in the third quadrant. And if the angle lies in between 271 to 360, then it will lie in the fourth quadrant. So all these are valid cases. All the cases I have taken, O1, O2, O3, O4, they are valid equivalence classes. Then I have chosen any invalid. So any angle which is not in between 0 to 360, that is an invalid angle. So this O5 I have written just by invalid angle may not be sufficient. However, O sufficient to cover all. Therefore, it must be further divided into equivalence classes as shown in next slide, because there are two possibilities. Angle may be less than 0 or angle may be greater than 360. These are the two possibilities to represent invalid values, invalid angles. So O5 should be divided in like this. Maybe O51, where angle value is less than 0, this is invalid angle, and O52, where angle value is greater than 360, again which represents an invalid angle. Now let's design the test cases. Now the test cases can be designed from the above derived classes as shown below. First one I have supplied, suppose 50. Of course, it will lie quadrant 1. And which class is covering? O1. If you are giving 135, it will lie in the second quadrant. Which equivalence class does it cover? O2. Similarly, for 250, it will the expected output is that it should be there in third quadrant and it lies in, it covers O3 class. But the problem is that suppose you have given 250 and it is showing for fourth quadrant. So definitely there is some problem in your design or some problem in your coding. In this way, we are comparing the expected output versus the actual output. If your actual output does not match with the expected results, expected output shown in your test case table, then definitely something is wrong and then you have to find out the error. That is the objective of black box testing. Similarly, for angle 320, it must show that the expected result is that it is in fourth quadrant. But if you are getting in third quadrant, some problem in your software, you have to check, you have to detect the error and which class it covers, O4. Similarly, if the value is 370, of course, it is an invalid angle, error message should display. It covers which class, O51, because just I have shown O51 is angle less than 0 and angle is greater than 360 is O52. So I think this is a mistake, I think. It should be O52 because 370 invalid angle, it is written O51. It should be O52 or I have to change it here. So let's make it that if angle is, I can just shift these things because a simple typing mistake. So let us make it angle greater than 360 in order to match our result. And for O52, angle is less than 0. Okay, so minor mistake, I think. So now you can see 360, if you have taken 370, so of course it will cover now O51. And if you have given angle -1, then it should show the expected result must be invalid angle and it is covering class O52. But in this case, if you are getting first quadrant for angle -1, definitely some problem in your design or some problem in your code. Try to find out the error, locate the error and correct the error. In this way, you can use equivalence partitioning technique to design black box test cases. Okay. So today we have discussed the errors, different kinds of errors detected by black box testing techniques. We have explained the concept of equivalence partitioning technique with some examples. So several exercises are there in books. Please practice. These things I have taken actually from two books. One is Rajimal's book and another book is Naresh Chauhan book that you will also. So try to practice many examples and exercises from this. Thank you very much for your patientful hearing. Now let us take out the questions. Any questions so far? This is very simple. You have to only understand and you have to just utilize your brain, exercise your brain and solve these kinds of problems. Any doubt, anybody else? Okay.
Hello, sir.
So since simple, I think, yes. Yes.
Sir, in the example where date are considered like month, day and year, not
Yes.
every month has 31 days. So how can that equivalent classes are good?
Yes, actually that is a very good valid question, that every month does not have like some months are 30, some months are 31, some months are this. So again that has to be rectified. So here we have assumed that, see, here we have assumed that days in between 31. So that with that assumption I am moving, that the maximum number of days here it is 31. But I have not taken up that. Then again, that we have to revise. Okay. So that will take up in maybe some other class. We have to again further divide. That means for which months days are there. That problem will be further. Yes. So here we have just assumed that all the months are of maximum are 31. For to be specific, we have to again elaborate the equivalence classes. Please take an assignment and do this thing. only simple we have to extend it. You have to specify that the month numbers, like you have to make the combination. If month 1, then days would be 31. If month 2, days would be 28. Then again problem for so problems are actually we have not jumped directly into what critical problems. Since then we'll stop here. Then Tuesday we are having a class at 10 o'clock. Tuesday we are having a class at 10 o'clock. Let's see just what we'll do.